All right, at this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Reverend Rodney Gittens. Reverend Rodney Gittens is a devoted spiritual leader, teacher, and servant of the heart. He was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, where he still resides. Reverend Gittens has dedicated his life to walking the path of loving service. Since first being introduced to religious science in 1996, his journey has been one of deep commitment to spiritual growth, community empowerment, and leadership. He is the founder and senior minister of One Love Center for Spiritual Living, established in 2012, and officially affiliated in 2017, and he became an ordained minister in 2021. Within the Centers of Spiritual Living organization, he has served in numerous leadership roles, including as a regional diversity trainer, member of the Diversity Commission Visioning Team, the Vision Team, and the Awards Committee. He is also a co-founder of People of African Descent New Thought. Reverend Gittens is known for his warmth, his humor, compassion, and dedication to building communities rooted in love and inclusivity. He says yes to the ever-expanding call of spirit and action, answering it with grace, joy, and an open heart. Please join me in welcoming Reverend Rodney S. Gittens.
Oh. Thank you. Would you like a hug?
I'll never say no to a hug.
Thank you. Okay. I'm so grateful to be here today. I'm just in a moment of surrendering. Thank you. Well, I'm grateful to be at my home away from home. I just love being here. You just have to forgive me for just soaking in all this beauty, all this power, all this love. I love the mission. It says, cultivating powerful individuals. And that's what I'm feeling. I'm seeing it right now. I get it. Oh, wonderful place to be. I'm so grateful that Reverend Tawana has asked me to come again and be here for her during one of her well-deserved breaks. So thank you for receiving me. Thank you for having me. It's good to see familiar faces, some from my very beginning at Center of Peace. And so again, thank you again. Good to be home. Yeah, that surrender is something else. All I know is this is about being spiritually fed. And right now, I'm feeling like it's overflowing. I know, you can never get fed up. You can just never get enough of this stuff. It's all so good. So I can't wait to hear what Reverend Rod has to share today. I'm open. So last time I was here, I talked about the divine nose. Remember that? Or those who were here maybe saw it. I'm not talking about that today. I thought about it. I'm like, no, okay. I said, no, I'm not. And when I heard that, it reminded me that just a few days prior to that, I helped somebody unravel a knot. And I'm like, I'm good at that. I'm good at unraveling knots. And as we quite often do, I'm like, that sounds like a talk happening. Yeah. And so the not was just not K-N-O-T, it was N-O-T. And like, how often do I use that, like, as in saying, I am not. I am not. You know, I'm good at knots. It's like, whoa, you know, I don't want to go there. I don't, you know, it just didn't feel like the message that was going to really do justice, especially for me. But I said, but wait a minute. I mean, have you ever felt like things aren't working out and you expect things to look a certain way? And maybe you're juggling so much stuff and you're doing so much here and there and you feel all discombobulated and things get what? All knotted up. I'm not doing this, this is not working out. I'm like, whoa. So I have to step back and thank God for spiritual practice, especially the meditation. Thank for the wonderful meditation today. And the songs and everything was about what? Who am I being? Okay? Not what I'm not. Make it affirmative. What about who am I being? And I'm like, well, that sounds like something worth talking about. Okay? And a little more than that, we have opportunity to be less uncomfortable in the unknotting, the unraveling. Because like in that surrender, it's like I got to let go of stuff. I got to open up. You know, I have to, I mean, and that's the first step, is to surrender. Whatever I've been holding on to, whatever I've been knotting up, just let it go. Let it be. And sometimes I got to walk away. That string, whatever it is all knotted up. You know what? Just let it go. I surrender. You know, instead of trying to make it work. You know, it's like, let me surrender. And so then how do we relax into being? Into who am I being? Who am I going to be? Who do I want to be? You know, sometimes when, but you know, that's process. But it's about yet to be. You know, those who remember anything about me is I like acronyms. So that's an easy one. B, B-E, okay? And you can get that all warmed up over there. And I'm like, yeah, it's not saying no to not what I don't want. It's like yes to be. And so what came up next was B, bees, not bees, bees. However, speaking of being, what came up, which something I didn't really pay a lot of attention to, and maybe there are some Bible scholars in here, what came up was the Beatitudes. I'm like, gee, I've always liked that word, and I, you know, going through school and everything, I had to go over them, and, you know, we learned about them. I said, there's got to be more to it than that, even though they're great. The Beatitudes, ways of being, you know, from the Bible. Jesus speaking in the Sermon on the Mount. He's had a whole lot of stuff besides that, but the Beatitudes are like a basic blueprint on how to be. It's like not for nothing, it's for something. You know, it's for how do we show up in the world? How do we show up whether things are working out the way we want or not the way we want, especially when there's knots. It's like, how am I getting through this? How am I getting out of this? How am I getting, you know, we might want to get around it, but we know it's really about getting through it. But first things first, we have to surrender. Surrender into a deeper understanding. And so what I'm so grateful for this teaching, that we get to examine the words that we use and how we use them. So the Beatitudes is great. I was like, well, what about the B part? You know, what kind of attitude am I applying to my life today? You know, sometimes you might start off your day with meditation, and then when you start going throughout your day, whether you're going to work or whatever, or hanging out with friends, and sometimes you just pick up an attitude. You know, you swear it didn't come from you. You got it from somebody else. Threw their attitude on me, and now I got it. You know? I mean, no, we don't have to take responsibility for their attitude, except now we got it. And what do we do with that attitude? Because usually it's not going to serve us well when we have an attitude. But thank God we have a be attitude. How would I rather be with this attitude? Is it loading up?
Do it for the first page?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, because we're in new thought, we get to have a new thought about it. So, we step into a deeper understanding of what Jesus was talking about. The Beatitudes. I mean, I just love that. You know, this is made for new thought. You know? It's like life is not only about what we do, it's how we choose to be in each moment, correct? And so the Beatitudes are sacred sayings that come from the opening verses of the famous Sermon on the Mount, and that's in Matthew chapter 3rd to 12th verse. He starts off each phrase with, blessed are. Yeah, blessed are. So we're already starting off with a blessing, blessing ourselves, right? So we can move into the first one. The next one, yeah. So, again, not just a list of virtues, and all of the major religions have something, whether it's Buddhism or Confucianism, Hinduism, they all have virtues that are the foundation of their religion. I mean, the spiritual foundation. And so, ways of being for that see, surrender isn't enough. You know, we got to surrender. Once we surrender, then we can kind of walk through the open door. Then we can allow ourselves, and I use the awareness of the personal holy, heavenly domain. In the Bible and other interpretations, they use the word kingdom. And I was like, okay, you know, let's not do the gender thing. Because I started to do kingdom, queendom. I'm like, no, it's got to be something else. Your personal heavenly domain. All right? Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay. I mean, you can use it if you want. Yeah, I won't charge you. But I'm just saying. It's like kingdom, queendom. Yeah, yeah. No, it's not a place. You know, it's not domain over anything else but ourselves. Okay? So, in New Thought perspective, that personal inquiry we're asking of ourselves. We're doing our own spiritual work. I mean, you know, many times we want to take somebody else's inventory and tell them what they need to be and do so they get to have what we think they should be, do, and have. No, we're talking about a personal inquiry. Take it on for yourself. Who are you choosing to be? All right, so let's take a look. What attitude are you choosing to live? You have a choice. Nobody gets to make you do anything. Nobody gets to make you feel any old kind of way. Guess whose responsibility that is? You know, whose choice is it? Now, I know stuff happens, especially driving. All right, see, I got some identification here. When somebody cuts you off, what's the attitude? Oh, sure, go ahead. That's not my first choice, I gotta admit. But I have a choice. The next breath, the next choice. What am I gonna do next? You know, so who in that moment am I choosing to be? How am I choosing to be it? Am I surrendering? And then what? The attitude that I'm going to live in that moment? Because, you know, in that moment, when somebody steps on your toe or cuts you off or calls you outside your name, you have the next moment after that. Okay, got to surrender that previous moment Thank you for that. I really appreciate that song. I'm working it. And then what? So the attitude you choose to be is what we're going to talk about. The Beatitudes with acronyms. Okay? So add a little spice to it. Let's go on to the next one. Thank you. So, blessed, are the poor in spirit. And that translates into New Thought language as becoming enlightened. So to be poor in spirit is to release the ego. You know, a lot of people misinterpret what this really is supposed to mean. Poor in spirit really means to release that false pride. Okay? To open our hearts to the divine awareness and humble ourselves before the truth. Again, here's another word. I don't know if you looked it up. Humble. You guys know the real meaning of humble. You know, it doesn't mean just sit back and like, okay, yeah, that's the way it is, and I'm not going to fight it. No, humble means your true nature. Humble says you can brag on yourself if you want, just don't get carried away. You know, humble is recognize the truth of who you are. That's what humble means. It is the truth. If somebody says, hey, you did a great job, humble, you get to say, yes, I did, thank you. You know, humble doesn't mean, oh, no, it wasn't me, I did, you know. No, that's not humble. Humble is, yes, thank you for recognizing that, I appreciate that. You know, I have everything I need to get that job done, thank you. That's humble. And that's our becoming enlightened, okay? Awakening to the light within, knowing the truth of who we are. Let your light shine. Yes? Is that making sense? Does that feel better? Feel good? You can wear that, right? Yeah, I could be that. I can have an attitude of being enlightened. Yes? All right, I'm seeing some smiles. Yeah, you know, let it circulate. Yeah. And the next one. The next blessing is blessed are they that mourn. And that is being embraced. So the metaphysical meaning is the movement of the heart when love has been touched by loss. You know how you feel like sometimes it just feels empty, but there's another feeling? And that's the feeling where we're open. Our heart is open. And a lot of times we don't want to be because it feels vulnerable. Okay? However, when we are in that realm, that attitude, it's about being embraced. It's feeling ourselves embraced by the divine. Because we're open and we're sensitive. And vulnerable is not a weakness, it's a strength. Because to be open means you're using faith and trust. All right? And allowing ourselves to be embraced by the divine. So it also helps to surrender, but it also helps to surrender to what? Surrender to the awareness that God is for us, never against us. Faith and trust in something that is for us and never against us. Yes? Yes. All right. Let's move to the next one. I always liked this one because I thought I was always meek and mild and all, you know, like, Balanced expression. Meek are not weak. They are spiritually balanced, grounded, and receptive to the flow of good. Balanced expression means you know when to speak, when to listen, and when to simply radiate peace. Have you been around where there's a lot of turmoil and a lot of strife and a lot of, conflict? And those who are aware, those who know, what do? They just sit there and let things unfold for other people. It's like, but what happens in sports? When there's a fight or there's hockey or whatever sport it is, and then somebody else wants to jump in, what do they call it? The third man in, right? And that's the one that gets caught. That's the one who gets thrown out of the game. They're like, wait a minute, I'm just trying to break it up. It's okay to just be still. Allow things to unfold. When to speak, when to listen, And it's like, I remember early on in this teaching, learning about treatment. And the practitioner who was teaching the class said, when you pass a traffic accident, don't stare at the accident. Don't look to see, oh my God, what happened? And then you get all emotionally flustered and everything. It's like, just go within. Just do a silent prayer. Do a treatment for all involved. Know the highest and the best. And keep moving. Don't just stuck in that moment. So yeah, balanced expression. All right. And so the next one, please. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness. Boundless expression. So metaphysically, it means that we're desiring spiritual alignment over anything else. Spiritual alignment. See, hunger and thirst are not like bad things. Just means that, you know what? It's time. It's time to get refreshed, re-energized, to pay attention, really. Sometimes how you can go throughout a day, I speak for myself, and I haven't eaten, and I haven't had anything to drink. I'm like, ooh, something doesn't feel right. But I didn't get the message that it's actually thirst or hunger. Well, the same thing happens to us on a spiritual level. You go out your door, and you didn't meditate, you didn't pray, you just got up and go. Don't you feel a little bit out of sorts? Especially when you launch yourself into life, and stuff is going on, and it's like, whoosh, 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 like, wow, slow down, and that's basically our message for ourselves. So, whoa, wait a minute, slow down. Now, one very important thing I learned I have 12-step experience, and one of the most important things they said was, at any time, you can start your day over. And I would just like stop, do the serenity prayer or whatever prayer. I'm like, okay, my day starts now. And now I get to feed myself what I need to have in my body, in my soul, in my spirit, in my mind, in my heart. Yeah, we get to do that. Nobody says my day starts when I wake up and I got to trudge through the whole day. What do people say to themselves? Oh, I'm having such a bad day. Start your day over again at any time. I got that concept when I realized that, there's all these different time zones around the planet. So who says I have to go by the clock? All right? Well, it's 10 o'clock. I got all day to have a bad day. No, just start your day over. Make your own clock, right? Your own time schedule. Start your day over every minute if you need to, right? I'm just saying. All right, so growing into greater truth, wisdom, and spiritual capacity. Again, there's that surrender. It's like, you know what? Let me stop for a moment and see what's available for me in this next moment. Growing in truth, wisdom, and a spiritual capacity to be spiritually fed in so many different ways, if you're open. If you see the smile of a child, it's not your child maybe, but just anybody's child, you're like, wow, what are they smiling about? Guess I could do that too. That's that wisdom, the spiritual capacity for greater expression of my light, of our light. That's it. Let's go on to the next one, please. Blessed are the merciful. Blessing everyone. Don't you love blessing people? Yes? No? Yes? Just checking, yeah? Okay. You don't have to make it anything formal. Like, I think I did this in foundations class. Everybody had foundations class? Yeah? Yeah, okay. All right. And we were talking about money and how, money is is spirit in action. And so what worked for me was every time I hand somebody money or receive money, I would like, bless you. And I'm like, okay, well, that's spirit in action. You know, that makes sense to me. Also, it says on the bill, in God we trust. I'm like, okay, well, that really makes sense. You know, the presence of the divine in me is blessing you, and I'm being blessed in return, just from that activity of God, in action of God. So anyway, mercy, yeah, you got to be compassionate. When they step on your toe, be compassionate. With who first? With yourself first. Give yourself some compassion, and then spread it to somebody else. They probably didn't mean to step on your foot, or maybe they did. But either way, what's going to hurt? You know, when we are merciful, we are blessing everyone because we're doing a namaste, right? The presence of God within me recognizes the presence of God within you, right? We are merciful. Well, how about full of mercy? We are full of mercy. What are you going to do with it? You can't keep it unless you give it away, right? You've heard that one before? Right? Give it away. Give it away, your compassion. You're not going to run out. It's like love, peace, joy. You're not going to run out. Patience. You're not going to run out. Anybody disagree with that? I'll just explain really quickly. All of these are eternal. You're not going to run out of love. The question is, how much are you going to use in each moment? How much patience? Because how do we phrase that? Now, maybe nobody here. Maybe you know somebody who says, I've run out of patience. No, you just run out of the patience to use your patience. Right? You're not going to run out. You're not going to run out of love. But just how much are you using? Okay? How much compassion are you using? How much peace are you using? It's 100% peace. How much of it do you want to use? A piece of peace or all of peace? Okay. So let's do the next one. Blessed are the pure in heart, brilliant essence. That makes plenty of sense, right? That one don't need much explanation, right? Purity of heart meaning clarity of intention. You know where you're coming from. You know what your intention is. Is it pure? You know, is it well meant? Is it coming out of fear? No. Without hidden agendas. Most of the time, when we're coming from a selfish place, when we're coming from, this is what I want to do, the way I want to do it. No, that's not pure in heart. You know when you're being true to the spirit that's within you. It reminds me of the first thought. Usually, I'm not going to say always, but usually, when we're coming from the right place, it's that first thought that we don't even have to think about. It just comes up, right? You know what I'm talking about? When you're doing meditation and all of a sudden that thought pops into your head and you know it feels right, even though it might feel scary, it might feel like, ooh, I had a thought. But then what happens? A lot of times we want to think again. Well, wait. Let me see. Those other thoughts that we're trying to erase the first thought, that's the fear speaking. That's the ego speaking, trying to control the situation. Because spirit is uncontrollable in that way. Spirit is like, yeah, do what you want to do. Yeah, okay. But you'll be back. Right? It's like, I'm not leaving. You'll be back. Okay? I think that was part of that song too. Living as a brilliant essence, when you have that divine idea and you can't hold it back and you can't wait to get that idea into manifestation, doesn't that feel good? You can't wait to see how it shows up. Can't wait, but it's a step-by-step process. But all the time, That light is shining. You just can't hold it back. I know sometimes we do try. We do try to cover up that light. Because sometimes it might seem embarrassing. It might seem like I don't have enough of whatever it takes, boldness, courage, or whatever, information, knowledge, wisdom. But you can't cover it up because people are going to ask you questions. What's going on? Hey, how you doing? That's all they need. And then we might start tripping, like trying to say anything other than exposing that light. I got a great idea. And sometimes shame might come up, I can't have a bright idea, brilliant idea. We get to own it, God shine unobstructed. Let it flow, let it shine. This is who you are being. Yes? Yeah? All right, let's move to the next one. Blessed are the peacemakers, bringing equanimity. How many of you consider yourself a peacemaker? I'm not saying every hand, but you're in a place called the center of peace. I'm just saying. All right? I don't want to embarrass anybody. You don't have to raise your hand, but I'm just saying, nod, smile, something, we don't want to try to they didn't raise their hand. No. Yeah, right? Be the peace. Wherever you are, by yourself. I have a friend who creates turmoil in like a millisecond. Just no, take a breath. How many times do you have to say that to somebody? Take a breath. That's enough. Listen, I didn't want to talk about it. I'm going to mention it really quickly. Somebody hit my car on Friday. First-time driver. Shouldn't have been on the street. No registration, no insurance. And her and the occupants of the car came out ready. They were ready. I was ready. I was ready to be the peace because I'm already surrounded by 4 or 5 people. I'm what? And thankfully, I know the option was be the peace. That was easy, because what am I going to do? Throw down? I'm no, I've been around too long to have to try to do that. Whether I could win, wasn't any option. It was what? Be the peace. I didn't tell him, take a breath. I just said my piece, said what I need to say, and I had to go back to the other beatitude and just, knew when to speak, knew when to listen, and when it just okay, I'll wait for the police to come. And the police never came, but they calmed down, and we did what we were supposed to do anyway, exchange information. But being a peace was crucial in that moment. If because they all work in harmony together. If I didn't, know when to stop talking, I may not have got to this one. I mean, I got to get to be peace in that moment. So, in the calm, in the storm. And the storm begins where? Between the ears. And it can attract others who want to jump in that storm. And sometimes they're comfortable with that role. Oh, a storm. You got a storm? Got storm? Yeah, no, I got peace. Yeah, that's what's happening. I'm oh, I didn't jump in that mess. So, at any time. Yeah, of course it helps if we start our day over as many times as necessary to be the peace. That's all right. And we are these powerful beings. I love that. Powerful, individualized expressions of the one. That's who we are. That's what we carry everywhere we go. And folks, whether they know you or not, they know you. They know who you are. They're waiting for you to express who you are. And sometimes they want to help bring it out. I got a storm. Who are you going to be? You want to be a storm with me? You know, I know you're peace, but are you sure? Let me see. Let me try this out. You know, yeah. It's up to who? It's up to us. You know, harmony and extended outward because it begins within. Yeah. That's it. Well, you know, you're getting a whole lot of responsibilities today. All right, so we'll move it to the next one. Now, I know there's some identification with this. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Got to be boldly enduring. The whole idea is that, you know, the story of Jesus, you know, being persecuted, you know, they're like, who you think you are? You, the Son of God? You think you're the Messiah? You think you're all that? I am what I am, you know. I'm my Father's son, you know. I mean, basically he was saying, well, don't you know that ye are gods? Don't you know the truth of who you are? You know, you set yourselves up, you know, to be all of that. I know who I am. I know who you all are. No, that wasn't good enough for them because they just didn't want him to, you know, have that role. But that's okay. But look, invite opposition. It's like a target on your back when you're just being the peace. You know, when you're being the love, when you're being compassionate, when you're being meek, and like, you know what, I don't have anything to say right now. That may not necessarily stop people from coming at you, but you got to be the one to practice these things. Boldly enduring. Enduring is one thing, but boldly, what's your option? Step back? Not stand for truth? Not stand on principle? I mean, we have, I don't know, countless leaders who stood up and stood out, you know, and put their lives on the line. I'm not saying that anybody, you know, has to do that. But they were boldly enduring. There were people who marched in the civil rights era with the fire hoses and the dogs and the, you know, murder, lynching, all of that. They were boldly enduring. Doesn't come easy. I mean, you know, at that age, you know, I was on a boycott line, a picket line, you know, little marches, you know. I think if I had seen what was going on TV, I might, as a little kid, I might like, I'm not going out there. What do I know? But my parents, you know, they were, and, you know, we're right along with them, making signs and all that, you know. But boldly enduring in the presence, knowing the presence is within. Like his wonderful song, you know, the stuff going on in the world. If you're not boldly enduring, are you going to have another opportunity to be boldly enduring? You know, my talk that last year, when I talked about Popeye, the great sage Popeye, and he said, "That's all I can stand. I can't stand no more." All of a sudden, he became boldly enduring. He's like, "Look, I'm getting beat down here. You know, I got to take a stand for what's right. You know, or at least my right to exist. You know, my right to live life, and for others as well. So to stand for truth, we got to take a stand. I mean, that's why we're in this teaching. Take a stand for spirit to express itself fully and completely." All right, so next. Blessed are you when men revile you. Isn't it interesting how people want to point out your faults? Yeah, talk about you, right? Now, it may be true, you know, or not, doesn't matter, but they're not looking at themselves, they're talking about you. And what do we have to do? We have to remain blissfully empowered. You're like, you know, I know the truth of who I am. I am in my center of peace, because I am, there is peace in my center. I can't help that, rooted in the kingdom of God, the heavenly domain, the queendom. You're rooted in the truth of who you are in your world. Can't nobody tell you anything other than that. You know the truth of who you are. They call you outside your name. They're like, want to point fingers, want to make up lies, all that stuff. Want to try to take away your good, because they can't. But they can try. They can try to make you feel like they are. Okay? But no. I mean, the story of Jesus, he's on the cross, forgive them, they don't know what they do. One of the famous last words. Well, what's he saying is like, they can't touch this. Who is that? MC Hammer, right? Can't touch this. Sticks and stones might break my bones, but, you can't take away the truth of who I am. Right? Yeah. So, stay rooted in the truth of who you are. And then the next one, please. So what are you going to do? Ask yourself, who am I choosing to be? You can take any one of these B's. Who am I choosing to be? Boldly enduring, balanced expression? Am I aligning my being with the attributes of spirit? Am I being peaceful, loving, kind, compassionate, understanding, merciful? Am I being joyful? Am I being giving? Am I being forgiving? What attributes are you putting in place to have a right attitude? Because first and foremost, if we don't have a right attitude, who's going to feel it first? It's not going anywhere. We might think somebody's going to catch my bad attitude. No, you got it. It ain't going anywhere. And they may not even understand it. They might not get it. They might be working on their own attitude. It's like, no. First and foremost, seek ye first. Where is it? The divine, how do I call that? Oh, the heavenly divine place within you. The kingdom, the queendom. That's where you go first. And that's where all of these principles are. Yes? That's where they are. And so also, how am I choosing to be? How? How am I practicing these qualities in my everyday affairs? And they may come up as challenges. And then, what attitudes am I choosing to live? What's showing up? How are other people seeing me before I even open my mouth? Before I even turn the corner? We're energetic beings. We are spiritual, we are spirit. Okay, and we inhabit these bodies and we use all this energy. And that energy precedes us everywhere we go. That's how we attract stuff to us. Like in that moment, what's that attitude? Because it's going to find a match. Okay, so we got to be aware of that. Living from love, peace, truth. So, we're going to take it to the next level. I know you've already done some affirmations, but guess what? We got some more food for you. All right? And we'll take it to the next one. I hope we got it on here. There we go. So, I invite each one to join with me in repeating the affirmations. However, I invite you to speak it loudly, like you wrote them yourself. Okay, own it. Okay, so it gets a little bit ingrained in your presence. Okay, are you ready? Yes. How many? I heard like maybe 3 or 4 voices. Are you ready? Yes. Oh, here we go. I am the embodiment of divine being. I choose to be the light, the love, and the life of spirit in expression. Today, I live my be attitudes and the kingdom of heaven is right where I am. This is the truth. It's always been the truth, especially right now. And am I doing a quick little treatment? Fair? And so, yes, right where I am. No, now? Oh, yeah, sure. Please stand, practitioners, as I do this treatment to help ground what we've been experiencing in this moment. Oh, I thought you were just holding vigil. You didn't have to get up, but that's okay. Good to see you. And so right where I am, presence of the divine is divine. The divine is everywhere I am, and the I am is each and every one of us. Each and every one who is here is of the I am, is the I am being. It's being all that it is, being all that it is meant to be from the inside out, knowing that it begins with a greater understanding of oneness, the greater understanding of love and peace and joy and harmony and well-being, wholeness, all of this good that is ever available with every moment, with every breath. And so I am blessing each and every one that is hearing this word, that is knowing this word, that is experiencing this word, who is even doubting this word, and knowing that there is truth being revealed in every breath. And so I am knowing that the Beatitudes is an opportunity to be a greater attitude, not just for oneself, but for all expressions, all ones of the one. And all ones of the one get to share with each other. And maybe even in the midst of challenges, in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of change, there is the opportunity for an attitude of gratitude, attitude of compassion, attitude of being full of mercy and allowing it to flow. I know this shows up in all of our affairs, all of the affairs of relationships, knowing that each one is open and receptive to a greater understanding of a higher sense of being, a higher sense of order, a higher sense of, a wonderful reflective attitude that reflects like a mirror the true nature of each and every one. And so therefore, since there's only one, there is never a need for conflict or strife. There's never a need for war, because it's all one. It's all one of the same spirit. So we see peace and harmony as a natural way of being, the only way of really being. You see, an attitude of accepting abundance and prosperity as a way of accepting greater good. An attitude of trust and faith and knowing that God supplies everything necessary to fulfill the divine purpose on the planet. Oh, what a wonderful attitude to have. And also as well, an attitude of vibrant and abundant health in mind, body, of affairs, physically, in any way possible to continue life in this form. I am knowing that, yes, there is an attitude of faith and assuredness of being able to take care of what has been given for this spirit to move around the planet. I bless each and every word, each and every one, and knowing that these words already spoken into law of divine right order are returning full to overflowing. So I simply release this word, knowing it is done and continues to be done by law. Lordy, Lordy, yes. I receive it and release it and let it be the good that it is. And please affirm this with me. Make it firm by saying, and so it is, and now it is. Right now, even now.
And with that, I want to thank everyone for coming out, and I hope you enjoyed the service. Sending you love and light and knowing the divine is always with you, always within you, and always expressing through you. And so it is.